So thank you again for coming. Committee enrollment coordinators, we engage communities. We keep community members informed, engage, encourage public involvement, and we listen to your feedback. Yes, that's why. We talked about the NPL. Okay. One other thing that I will say about community involvement, Superfund sites are eligible for technical assistance services, and that is a contract with headquarters in Washington, D.C. I serve as a task coordinator, 70 City, and if you all would like to partake in the options that are available for tasks, which includes in a community advisory group, having technical assistance, if there's a document that is written that the public and task services can have it translated in language. So with that, if you have questions about that, you can see afterwards. I'm going to introduce you to the site team, and they'll come up and give different portions of the presentation. First, I'd like to introduce you to Amelia's not here. I'm serving that Lauren Murphy is the Remedial project manager for the site. She will give the bulk of the presentation tonight. Also here with us tonight is Tackle-Rao, who is the National Priority List coordinator. Ann Jacobs and Vanessa Madden are risk assessors, and they will have a Todd Davis is a site assessment supervisor. He's here with us tonight. We also have Andrew Jennings, who is a hydrogeologist, and we have TJ Atkins, who is the project manager for the Remedial project managers. She's the branch chief. We also have representatives here tonight with Iowa Department of Natural Resources, as well as the Des Moines Water Works and City. So at this time, I'm going to turn things over to Karen. And at the end of the presentation, there's microphones here if you would like to ask questions. Feel free to line up at that mic and we'll do questions.
Thank you, Pam, for getting us started and introducing me. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lauren. Valley Gardens. In the next half hour, we'll be going over a quick introduction to this and what it means for a site to go on to the national priority list. Then we'll follow with a short summary of the site's history and background, site conditions and concerns, and then our next steps as we start the site. Before we get to that, though, however, I'd like to go over tonight's key takeaways with you. First, and most importantly, I want you to know that your water meets all safe drinking water standards. That's why we're here tonight, and we're taking action at the site so that we can work on remediating contamination before it becomes a risk to water supply. Also, we want you to keep in mind that you can fill parks, enjoy products from the local business. Did you use the book? Sure. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Yeah. Did you need me to repeat the first portion? Okay. Next key point, there's no immediate health or the environment. Together with the Des Moines Water Works, the EPA plans to keep monitoring the groundwater contamination and the water supply. And if at any point our monitoring data indicates a change in the situation at the site, we have to immediate action and address it in order to prevent unsafe drinking. Our next point, contaminated groundwater is present at the site and poses a potential threat to the Des Moines Water Works source water. That's a reason. Next, the EPA was referred to the site by the from the IDNR from Iowa Department of Natural Resources, and since then, the EPA has completed additional investigations to monitor the movement and concentrations of contaminants, assess potential impacts to the public water supply, and to identify the potential source. Lastly, we are working on having the 146 Valley Gardens TCE site added to the national priorities list of contaminated sites. And by doing so, we will be able to protect the public water supply and restore groundwater to the beneficial use. So So I briefly went over tonight's presentation topics in our last slide, but here's just a breakdown for you as a reminder. Starting with Kamud, who will provide you with a quick overview of the Superfund process and the national priorities list. Then I'll be back to go over the Lot 46 Valley Garden TCE site in greater detail. I'll be covering site location, concerns, short history of background of the site and the current site conditions. Next, you will hear from our risk assessors and Vanessa, who will discuss potential human and ecological risk concerns associated with the site. And then I'll be back for the final portion of the presentation and what lies next. That's how it's good.
Right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Lauren. My name is Kamut Baccarel. Like Lauren mentioned, I'm the National Priority List Coordinator for EPA in this region, Region 7. So I'll be brief. I just have 2 slides. However, I'll be around for the rest of the evening, and please, as some of you have already done, please come talk to me. And be all that. So, okay. So the authority that brings us here is, the CERCLA, right? Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act, CERCLA. CERCLA is the law that was passed by Congress in 1980, and it gave the federal government the authority to clean up hazardous waste sites and established this hazardous substance trust fund that we commonly refer to as Superfund. So many of you say Superfund sites. Many of you have heard that. So what is the goal of Superfund? It is, first and foremost, to protect human health and the environment by cleaning up polluted sites, involve communities like this evening in the cleanup process, and return previously polluted land to productive use at the conclusion of the cleanup. And we've done this many times before. And this figure here on behind me shows, the entire remedial process in Superfund. The community involvement and planning for reuse and redevelopment occurs throughout the entire process. Arrow on the bottom. The removal actions can occur at any time throughout the remedial process. Removal action is a short-term cleanup action that addresses immediate threat to a site. If someone's exposed, or we know that someone's exposed, then we have an emergency response authority and funding to address that. And the remedial action represents the final remedy for a site, and are generally more expensive and longer duration, like groundwater rescue situation like we have. Okay, so currently we've discovered the site. We've already performed the preliminary assessment, site inspection. We're at this assessment stage. At the conclusion of this assessment stage, a site gets placed on the national priority list, and this is where we're gearing up for it. If everything goes well, then we will be proposing this site on the national priorities list in September, and it will undergo a 60-day public comments period. And then in the spring of 2024, the site gets listed on the national priorities list, which makes funds available from EPA, federal government, to clean up the site and address any potential concerns at that point. So what is national priorities list? I think commonly we mistake a national priorities list site as a Superfund site. There's thousands of Superfund sites, but there's some. Yeah, over the last many years, we've had 100+ sites in our region that's on the NPL one time or another. It's a list of national priorities among the known releases or threatened releases of hazardous substances, pollutants, or contaminants throughout the United States. And hazard ranking system. It's a numerical scoring system that EPA uses to assess the threat associated with actual potential releases of hazardous substances at the site. And we essentially evaluate 4 pathways: soil, And then vapor intrusion, that's one pathway put together, groundwater pathway, surface water pathway, and air migration path. And in this site, in our case here, we're really looking at the groundwater pathway. Because it potentially impacts, again, I want to reiterate the fact that it potentially, it has not impacted the water in the city. So in May of 2023, EPA received concurrence from the Governor Reynolds, from Governor Reynolds in support of the site's proposal to the NPL. And here we are gearing up and doing whatever we can do to protect human and the environment at this site. At this point, if you have any questions, I'll be around, nudge me. At this point, I'll hand it back to Lauren. That's the presentation.
Thank you, Cliff.
You bet.
So now that we've covered the Superfund and NPL processes, I'd like to talk a little bit about the site specifics. So we'll start with the site location. The site location is outlined here in red. And it's approximately a mile and a half southwest of the downtown area called Bound. It is bordered on, I'm sorry, I don't have a pointer. On the east side, it is bordered by Fleur Drive, south by Bell Avenue, and then to the west and to the north by the Raccoon River. As of 2022, an estimated population within the city limits was approximately 212,000 persons. And land use within the site boundary is a mix of light industrial, heavy commercial, as well as parking. And here's an aerial view of the site, a little bit more zoomed in than the last view. Again, that's Fleur Drive on the eastern head, Bell Avenue to and the Raccoon River to the west and to the north. I also want to point out the Des Moines Water Treatment Plant is there at the topmost extent of our image here. And the Des Moines Water Works sources its water from an infiltration gallery that is highlighted here. You can think of the infiltration gallery as a large French drain. If you have a home or if you've ever installed one, typically they consist of a trench. Then you put a perforated pipe in there and surround it with sand and gravel. The Des Moines Water Works infiltration gallery spans nearly 3 miles and is situated about 30 to 40 feet below the ground surface. The sand and gravel around the pipe filter out silt, bacteria, algae, and other unwanted materials, making it a very good source. Both river water and groundwater contribute to this system. It's estimated that approximately 85% of the water into the system comes from the river, with groundwater making up the other approximately 15% that goes into the system. So now that we have a little bit better lay of the land, I'd like to go over a summary of the site's history. The lot 46 Valley Gardens TCE site was discovered initially in 2004 by environmental consultant conducting investigation at a nearby unrelated site. Then in 2006, IDNR completed an initial site screening, developed a quality assurance and project plan for their investigation, and received an environmental license from the city of Des Moines to conduct. Then between 2007 and 2019, IDNR carried out several groundwater investigation activities to better understand the nature and extent of contamination in the groundwater at the site. Through their investigations, they were able to delineate an approximately 1.5 mile long plume of contaminated groundwater near the Des Moines Water Works infiltration main. The word plume refers to the feather-shaped distribution of the contaminants within the groundwater. The primary hazardous constituents found in the plume are TCE, or trichloroethylene, and some of its breakdown products, including cis-1,2-DC, trans-1,2-DC, and vinyl chloride. Then, in 2020, EPA received a letter from IDNR requesting federal action for further investigation and possible remedial action. And then from 2020 to 2022, EPA completed an integrated site assessment and supplemental hazard reviews memorandum. Since taking over regulatory oversight of the Lot 46 Valley Gardens TCE site, the EPA has continued to conduct investigations, monitor the plume's migration and contaminant concentration, assess potential impacts to the drinking water supply, support the site listing to the national priorities list, and determine the potential for source. EPA continues to gather information about potential responsible parties and is in contact with property owners regarding historical uses of properties in the area of concern. Part of the Superfund process is the PRP search, and through the PRP search, we can enhance our success in negotiating with potentially liable parties to conduct the needed. Primary contaminant of concern, as I stated, is TCE, which is an industrial solvent. It's used in a myriad of different industrial processes, such as parts cleaning or spot and paint removal. It's found in soil and groundwater when it's manufactured, used, or disposed of improperly. At the Lot 46 site, we also have a contaminated groundwater plume that includes Cis-12 DCE. And you'll see here on the right, as TCE enters the groundwater, it starts naturally breaking down into other constituents that include Cis-12 DCE. So this is what a contaminated groundwater plume looks like. Specifically, this is the extent of known TCE contamination at the Lot site. We have different shaded colors here that indicate the estimated level. And this shows the extent of one of TCE breakdown products, the Cis-12 TCE. What the two previous images show is that Cis-12 DCE and TCE are present in the groundwater and have migrated towards the Des Moines Waterworks and Filtration Gallery. They've both been detected in samples collected from the Des Moines Waterworks and Filtration Gallery across the river. However, both contaminants have been detected at levels well below the respective maximum contaminant level. If you look here on our table on the left, we'll see our infiltration gallery result. Our first column shows our contaminant of concern. Second column is our maximum contaminant level expressed as micrograms per liter, as well as our most recent sample results from Waterworks, also expressed as micrograms per liter. You can see the most recent sample was collected just earlier this month, and we had no detections of TCE, trans, 12 DCE, or 11 DCE or bifluoride. We did, however, have that breakdown product. It was found to have the concentration of 1.0 micrograms per liter. That's well below the maximum. Additionally, trace amounts of Cis-12 DCE have been detected in finished product water from the Des Moines Waterworks water treatment plant, also well below the MCL and health risks. At this point, you might be asking, what is the maximum contaminant level? And a maximum contaminant level is an enforceable drinking water standard that is set by the EPA. All contaminants that have been deemed unsafe by the EPA have their own maximum contaminant level. MCL is the highest quantity of a contaminant that is allowed to be in drinking water, and all public water systems must adhere to EPA's maximum contaminant level when treating water for public consumption. Now to talk a little bit more about what this means, I will turn it over to Ann Jacobs to discuss the potential risk to human.
Thank you, Lauren, very much. Anyway, for me, this is Ann Jacobs. Anyway, as Lauren mentioned, the EPA is for the side. Try to do is, and we have exposed at the site, either at home or at your. We gather information from the site to determine what contamination is present, where it's located, how people contact with. Once we have that information, EPA will develop a risk assessment to determine people are all concerned. First round of potential exposure that we will as three, and the farm has mentioned the supply. I will say the EPA will be working with any state while we're doing this. Background. Second potential pathway is papers that are building through the process called, and that is the process where the movement from water up through the ground, cracks and proper cracks in foundation up into the. So what we do is we're going to be paper intrusion study later, and that's why it's really important that EPA get access and business in the site boundaries. At the tables in the back, we have a consent form and we have more academic. The process of what paper intrusion is and what are the details. So if you have a home or business, it's really within the site boundary, we want to make sure that we have the opportunity for houses indoor. Once EPA has gathered all of the necessary information, we'll conduct risk assessment, risk at the site will determine and inform the site management. Next up is Vanessa Madden.
Thank you, Anne. So as part of the risk assessment, we do look also there we go. All right. So we look at the risk of human. We also look at the risk. And at a groundwater site like this, environmental risk becomes an issue. The groundwater in river, on lakes, wetlands. And if it does, then we can that aquatic food. Then the aquatic life, fish, and then anything that's eating. And that, so that food web is what we will evaluating when we do that ecological risk. And we haven't collected data yet, so we're going to anybody have any questions about our numbers? Right, I'm going to turn it back over to you. She can operate a clicker better than me. Thank you, Vanessa. Okay. So as we discussed, contaminated groundwater plume is larger and threatens the municipal water supply. Based on modeling using all data collected in May since 2007, current situation poses no immediate threat to human health or the environment at this time. However, the contaminated groundwater and source areas still need to be adequately remediated in order to return the groundwater aquifer to beneficial use. One way for us to achieve this is by placing the site on the national priorities list and following the Superfund process. Furthermore, EPA will continue monitoring the groundwater plume migration and concentrations, the semi-annual groundwater monitoring program in conjunction with the Des Moines Waterworks routine sampling of the infiltration gallery and pollution. Additionally, we are in the process of obtaining access agreements from residents and business owners with properties that lie within the site boundary as part of our vapor intrusion. As Ann previously mentioned, if you own a property at the site and would like to learn more, please pick up a vapor intrusion packet outside of it. We also plan to be at the site in the near future to enhance our monitoring network and to conduct additional groundwater sampling, further characterize the extent of contamination of the site. Once the EPA publishes its proposal in the Federal Register in September, we will be holding another public meeting. During this meeting, members of the community will be able to submit their official comments in person as well. The date and time of that is to be determined. It will be made available. So again, I'd just like to circle back to our key points to tonight's presentation. Number one, again, and most importantly, your water is safe to drink, and there are no immediate threats to human health or the environment. This time is a great year to get outside and visit Waterworks Park. You all have a very active cycling community that I've noticed, so get out and enjoy the bike trails or hit up a concert this summer at the amphitheater. I heard Nelson's supposed to be here in a couple days, so sorry team, my fault. Scheduling a little closer to when he's going to be here. But both the EPA and Des Moines Waterworks have been and will continue to work together to monitor contamination at the site. Although we don't anticipate it at any point before remediation begins, our data indicates a change in the situation at the site. We have the authority again to act immediately and address it to prevent unsafe drinking water conditions. Again, contaminated water is present at the site and poses a potential threat to the Des Moines Waterworks source. That's why we're here tonight, and we will be taking action at the site so that we can get to work on remediating the contamination before it becomes a risk to the public drinking supply. Then again, IDNR referred the site to EPA in 2020, and since then we've completed additional investigations to monitor the movement and concentrations of the contaminants, assess potential impacts to the water supply, and identify the potential source. Lastly, the EPA is taking the necessary steps to have the Lot 46 Valley Gardens TCE site added to the national priorities list of contaminants. An MPL designation will ensure we have the federal resources available for cleanup actions at the site so that detections of contaminants in the infiltration gallery continue to remain well below their respective maximum contaminant levels, and so that we can work on eliminating contamination from the groundwater. Our mission is to protect human health and the environment, and taking action now ensures that we protect the water. So that wraps up our presentation portion of tonight's meeting. Before I hand it back to Pam, I just wanted to say, while coming out here tonight to learn a little bit more about the site. In a few minutes, we will be transitioning into our Q&A portion of the meeting, where we plan to address as many of your all's questions as possible. If for any reason you're unable to stay for this segment and have a question that you would like to ask, please feel free to reach out to me directly via the contact information provided on the back. Thanks again.